Welcome to the Warning Track Power Hour. I'm Andrew Scaff. He's Mike Merman. Today because all the championships are done from last week, we are forced to talk about the Royals at length, I suppose. We're going to have to bite the bullet and actually talk about something we don't want to talk about.
That state of affairs.
And we'll also talk about some NFL and Chiefs news towards the end of the show. But we'll start today with the Royals getting their 20th victory, now 73 games into the season. How excited are you for that 20th win, Mike?
Well, I think they've officially passed what the Chiefs are able to win this calendar year. So I think the Chiefs, if they win um, all the regular season games this calendar year, will be able to win 19. But I think if they won all their preseason, they'd still be above 20. So
Yeah,
it's a rather ignominious uh, honor that the Royals
I think
have.
24 would be the most games that a team could win or have, I guess, in a season, right? Because it's 17 regular season plus the 3 preseason.
Yeah,
Then max of 4 playoff games, I guess, right? Is that
yeah. If they won 17 games, they wouldn't
you would?
um
Yeah, you couldn't.
playing. So I
You
guess
can
they would.
play 24 games. You can only win 23.
Yeah.
Yes. Right.
So the Chiefs won, I think, all of their calendar year games so far. They had a couple regular season and
Oh, you're looking
playoffs.
at it from that way.
I was
Okay.
looking at the calendar year, but
Yes.
I guess season as well would be the same, because the idea, I guess, you would start, well, maybe just the fluctuations of the calendar might you might play more weeks in September through December than in some years than other years, depending on when Sundays fall. But I think in general, yeah, you can win about 23 games if you include preseason right now, the way the NFL is played, because you're 17 regular season and then 3 2 4. But if you're gonna, like you said, if you're gonna play four, you can't win as many of those regular season games unless somehow, I guess, there were multiple 17 and 0 teams, which is possible if the teams don't play each other, like in the AFC. Like if it had been, like the Chiefs didn't play like the Dolphins last year, so theoretically the Dolphins could have gone 17 and 0, and the Chiefs could have gone 17 and 0, and then maybe the Chiefs could have lost the tiebreaker somehow based on common opponents or something like that, and played
It,
four. So
it
I guess,
would come down to some kind of like 3-way coin flip
yeah,
where somebody has to, because they would have the same record. They'd have the same record against their opponents because they would have
mhm.
won all their games, right? So
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
maybe points scored, but like, yeah, because there's only one bye now. So there used to be two byes. So if you had two 17 teams, they would
yeah.
still only play 3 games. But now with the one bye, only one team could. So I guess, yeah, you'd have to have two undefeated teams in the same conference to possibly get that extra win for one of the teams,
Right.
which
There you go.
seems
So
pretty
it's
remote.
still possible.
It's still possible. It is still possible to win 24 games. So you are meaningless and perhaps growing more meaningless every year. So it's one of those things where I guess it's kind of three coin flips you'd have to win. So you have a 1 in 8 shot, I guess, of winning three. If you're a normal team that doesn't really care about the preseason.
Right.
But yeah, maybe I don't think I can't. I think teams do have a, like, they do talk about going undefeated in the season and through the playoffs, but I don't think anybody talks about winning all the preseason
No.
games. So that would be a record in well, we'll talk about the Chiefs championship rings later, but maybe that would be included on them. Well, but let's go back to the Royals, who have um won their 20th game this year. That used to be, so they're almost halfway through the season. They're 20 and 53, I believe,
Correct.
and so it's 73 games. So only 8 more games to the halfway point. And I think we calculated earlier before the broadcast, they're percentage, they're winning. They're on the pace on pace to win 44 games and lose 118 games this year, which would be one of the worst,
I
maybe
believe
only
third worst, right?
yeah, third worst ever for a 162 game season. There are
Yes.
teams that were worse in the 19th century, like the Cleveland Spiders that went 20 and 134, I believe, in like
Yes.
1899 or something. But
So we have matched the 1899
yeah,
Cleveland
so
Spiders
that
for
was the
wins.
fewest wins for a team. So the Royals could lose. Well, actually, the Royals would need to win one more too, because if they Royals lost all out, it would be the percentage would be worse than this. So they
Much
need to
worse.
win um, at least one, probably two, maybe two more to make it healthy to pass the Spiders, I think. But yeah, this has been a bad season. I guess we don't know exactly why the Royals have been so bad. Maybe we do, but they've just been bad everywhere. Is there a thing like? Is there a thing that they do worse even than their other bad things? Like how are the Royals even worse than bad? Is it like what's the worst quality that the Royals have? Do
Well,
you
yeah,
think?
I started looking at two different things that I thought would be at least telling for how the team seems to be performing, at least anyway. One of them was just looking at the pitching staff and what kind of performance they've gotten out of their starters by rank, like the rank. So like Greinke as our ace, our one starter. Jordan Lyles was a free agent they brought in, became the
Worked
number
out
two
very well.
starter. And those two slots have extremely underperformed this season. Underperformed even the other three slots in the rotation. Um, Greinke is only 1-7 on the season personally, but the team is only 3-12 in the games that he's started, and part of that is because the bullpen isn't very good, and he's not able to go very deep into the games. He's only averaging about 5 1/3 innings per start.
Yeah, is he on a pitch count, or is he just, or they just think he's old and they don't want to wear him out?
I
Is there
think
any like
that's more
official?
of that. But when they brought him in, as a free agent, I thought it was like, oh well, maybe they're gonna have him be a reliever or like a 4 or 5 starter, because that's about where he would slot on most teams anyway. But the Royals wanted him in the one spot, so probably just because they want him to start opening day at least anyway, because that's sort of a
Yeah,
marquee game, and having a marquee player in that spot,
nostalgia. Yeah, yeah.
nostalgia wise, is probably why. But it's not done him any favors anyway. It's like if your ace is only getting you 3 wins out of 15 games, that's not great. And that's just the team's performance in his starts. But he's only 1-7 on the season anyway. But Lyles has been a complete disaster. 15 starts this season. The team has lost all 15 games that he has started.
Really? So they've won 0 games
Yeah,
that
he
Lyles has.
personally
That,
is 0-11 on the season, which is you'd think would be
oh, that's terrible. Is he?
really bad anyway. But the team has actually lost the other 4 games he didn't get a decision in either. So
I didn't realize things were that bad in the number 2 spot. I knew Lyles was having a bad year, but like the Royals,
yeah,
he's having a bad year even by Royals standards.
yeah. So they brought him in because he's been known as an innings eater. Basically, he may not have a superb ERA, but he's going to be able to give you a lot of innings.
Hmm.
Also, that is not what you want as your two slot as a
No,
franchise.
you want like a four, like a
You want
number
yeah, you
four
want him in
starter,
the
five
4 spot
starter
so
who'll be
that he can get your bullpen rested for the fifth starter, who's probably your weakest link amongst your starters. And probably a lot of the bullpen's going to be pitching on the fifth day. So if your 4 starter can go deep into the game, they're not going to be exhausted for the rest of the week after that performance, at least anyway. And from the 1 and 2, each guy's only averaging 5 1/3 and 5 2/3 innings per game. So the bullpen's getting taxed everywhere else after this. And those 1 2 guys are not performing at all. So the combined team record in the 1 and 2 starters positions, 3-27 on the season.
That's a 100 winning percentage if I did my math
Yeah.
right. That's by
And that
far worse even than the Cleveland Spiders.
and I don't think that's really necessarily the player's fault, but this is the team that was constructed, with this intention, at least anyway. It just seems like the order of which the players are being, used is not correct, at least anyway. It wasn't correct before the season started, and it's definitively incorrect at this point in the season anyway. But you can't change it now because like the rotation order is fixed for days off. So the next chance you have to reset is the All-Star break, which doesn't come up until July. So we'll have to see how they come out of that All-Star break if they reset the positioning at least of the starters. The 3, 4, 5 positions have been much better than the 1, 2, at least anyway. Keller started in the 3 spot. The team is 6 and 9 in that 3 spot starter. Now that Lynch has taken over, who's healthy and taken over, and who pitched
He had
today.
a good game tonight. He had 7 innings, no
only
runs allowed.
And only 1 hit allowed too.
Only 1 hit. Okay.
Yeah.
The Royals almost gave it up with some shaky bullpen work, but they managed to pitch the 1-0 shutout against Detroit in Detroit tonight. So that was their 20th win. So but the 3 spot has done okay-ish. At least it was sort of
in comparison. It's very good in comparison.
Like, and that's if your third, ideally you would think, well, your third starter is not going to be your best starter. If 3 and 4 can stay somewhat even close to 500,
like
1 and 2 are supposed to be carrying it. You think, okay, we're gonna have maybe a 70%. You would think, 70% winning percentage when our first starter pitches, maybe 60, second 50, 40, 30, and that would on average get us to be about 500 if we have the 5 starters.
Right.
It probably won't be quite that, but like, yeah. So, but yeah, I saw that Lynn, Lyles, he is number 1 in losses with 11. He is 3 above any other major league player. Lance Lynn for the Chicago White Sox has 8. He's also allowed the most earned runs in the major league this year. 64. Lance Lynn is second again with 61.
Wow.
Brady Singer is number 3 in earned runs. We'll talk about him in the 4th slot next, I guess. And Zach Greinke is number 5 in losses with 7 tied. And the other pitching bad stats, the Royals do not lead. No Royals player leads the league in wild pitches. You know who leads the league in wild pitches?
I have no idea.
That is Shohei Ohtani, who
really
leads the league. He has 11 so far.
Wow.
Brad Keller is tied for second with 7 wild pitches, and he hasn't even pitched the whole year. So
he's been out for quite a while.
Yeah, so maybe he would have.
He's missed the last 6 starts, so
probably in terms of probably wild pitches per game. I bet he is number 1, and also he's probably pitched fewer innings than per start.
But so he did make 9 starts, and the team was 4 and 5 in his starts, which is on this team is an ace basically, right? So that's it's unfortunate that he went down with an injury, but it's also unfortunate that the team didn't keep him in that number 1 slot, I think, anyway, because he was the opening day starter in 2020, but then was demoted when they signed Greinke, which is what I thought was not a great idea, at least strategy wise, for somebody that you consider to be a prospect to demote after you've achieved the number 1 position, right?
Yeah,
that's not a great look for like how to manage people just in general anyway. The number 4 slot in the pitching rotation is Brady Singer. He's 4 and 6, but the team is 6 and 8 in his starts, which is actually the best amongst the starters.
Yeah, so the 3-4 they've been kind of doing their job, especially on a like mediocre to worse team that you again thinking the Royals coming in, they were probably going to have a sub 500 record, but you thought, well, maybe they could win mid to high 70s even out of 100, be 75 and 87 or 77, 85, something like that. But
if you're really trying to construct a roster, you really hope that guy can pitch enough innings that he can protect that fifth day's bullpen, right? So,
Yeah.
and he's not, and Singer isn't able to do that right now. He's only throwing about 5 innings a game, I think. So there's
He's got a over 6 ERA.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then the fifth slot has been just a rotating slot of injured pitchers. It started as Bubic, who's now on the 60-day disabled list. And then they kind of switched to a bullpen game or an opener game.
Mm-hmm.
And so they've kind of gone through a rotation of Taylor Clark, Ryan Yarbrough, who then got hit with a ground ball or a line drive, I guess. And he went on the injured list with a fractured orbital bone.
Yeah, that's not, that was a ugly or scary injury.
Yeah, but it sounds like he's recovering okay, and I think maybe on his way to coming back, but it's still going to be quite a while.
Is he gonna? You think he'll wear like one of those shields
I would
or
assume so.
something? I'm not, or like face mask type of
I would guess so.
thing. Yeah,
and then
I would too if I lost. Yeah,
let's see. Taylor made one start. Carlos Hernandez made a couple of starts in that fifth slot. Mike Myers made 2 appearances there. The team actually won both of the games that he started, and now he's been designated for assignment and is off the team.
he was doing too well, I guess, for these.
And then Stalmont made one opener appearance that they won that game also.
Was that the Stout? Was that when Stout? Was
then,
that the game where they almost pitched the perfect game against the Cardinals? The Stalmont opening.
Oh yeah, and then I think Myers followed him in that one. Yeah,
and so Myers is gone though, and
now off the team, and Stalmont is on the disabled list or on the injured list. So yeah, that slot hasn't been terribly productive. You'd think by the rotation of players that have been in there anyway. But the team is only 5-9 in those starts, which is still considerably better than in the number 1 or number 2 slots in the in the rotation. One other thing I thought was interesting anyway, I looked at just to check. I was curious to see like, well, maybe Lyle's just been really unlucky and the team hasn't scored any runs in his appearances. I actually added them all up. And the team has scored 21% of their runs in his starts, which is almost exactly what you'd expect for 1/5 of the.
Yeah, it seems about average. Yeah. So they haven't been worse than the other.
But the team has given up 26% of their runs in that slot, which is so they've given up a lot of runs. But the player that has the most to say over how many runs are allowed in a game is the starting pitcher.
The Royals have given up 26% of the runs they've given up. So like
the whole season.
So they've given up. They've also given up a lot more runs than they've scored
in that number 2 starter slot. Yes.
So they've given up more runs than they've scored total. So they're, even if they give 21% of their runs and scored 21% of the runs, they'd still be.
It's not equal.
Yeah. So they'd still be well under 500 because they've allowed 100. I think they're minus 113 right now in run differential, which isn't the worst in the league, but that's the Oakland A's. But I think, like you said to me earlier, that the Royals should have about 27 or 28 wins if the Pythagorean record.
Maybe I think that's where they were 24 before today. I think they'd be 25 now with the win, I think, anyway.
Okay, so they're about 5 wins at least under where they should be, even being terrible.
Right. And so that means they're doing something, at least you'd think, decision-making wise, that's costing them a few extra games. And that is what I wanted to lead into for the second part of this. Pitching staff was the number 1 thing I thought was probably most telling about why the team hasn't done well. Number 2 is about like how the team handles the lineup after a win. So Saturday the team won, dramatic comeback. They're down 8-2 in the 7th inning, and they managed to come back to win 10-9 in that game.
Amazing win.
Taylor, his first game
that broke their 10 or 11 game losing streak.
Losing streak snapped with that game. But the lineup I thought was it makes sense, at least on paper anyway. They've got Nick Prado was leading off, Bobby Witt hitting 2, Sal Perez was 3rd, Melendez 4, Oliveras was DHing at 5, and then Garcia, Lopez, Samad Taylor in the 8 spot, Drew Waters 9. So they scored 10 runs that day. The roster lineup set for the Sunday game then against the same team. It is an opposite-handed pitcher, but instead of Prado not being in the game at all because I guess he's left-handed, they had Matt Duffy leading off. Why? I don't know. And playing first base. Why? Again, why? I don't know. Bobby Witt and Sal Perez did the same. Michael Garcia got moved up to the 4 spot for some reason. Samad Taylor, who's played 1 major league game, is now hitting 5th.
They won the game before, so I guess that's why they moved him up.
So he has to be up there, I guess. Sal, who was the catcher the day before, is now DHing. So Freddie Fermin is catching this game, hitting in the 6th slot. Nicky Lopez is still there at 7. Then they also subbed Dairon Blanco in right field. And so he was hitting 8, and Drew Waters stayed in the 9 slot. So to me, it just seems like you just won a game. Don't change anything. There's no reason for wholesale changes, and there weren't just wholesale changes like in the lineup, but they moved guys around on the infield too. So like Nicky Lopez was playing 3rd base the day before, now he's playing 2nd base this day, and like this, everybody was in a different slot on the.
I guess you could say Sunday
and in the lineup, and they also made 2 roster moves between Saturday and Sunday, bringing on 2 different players, designated one guy for assignment, sent another guy to the injured list. It's just that there were big changes that were being made, one day after they just finally got this win anyway, right? So I think there's no consistency, and that kind of stuff drives me crazy, at least anyway. Like there's
I suppose one thing for the Royals,
but like I don't get
Mhm.
the wholesale changes all at once.
If I were stepping in for the Royals, I would say that Sunday at least is the usual off day that players get. So maybe that was scheduled in advance, or that's just what that was planned. So we move things around on Sunday. But I guess it doesn't make much sense when the Royals seem to only win on Saturdays, maybe, and then
Yeah.
they switch it back, and then they have a bad start to the week, maybe. But usually, I think Sunday, the day game after the night game, or especially a Sunday day game after a night game, it seems to be that's the game you give. Yeah, usually, you'll give Salvi the DH spot or the day off or something like that. So I guess they're doing it like that. But
And I'm okay with that, especially with Sal, but you don't need to make changes in 3 or 4 slots on the same day. You could do one at a time and average out those changes so they're not so dramatic in one particular day anyway. So that's the kind of thing that like I find irksome, at least anyway, when I follow this team and to see what happens anyway.
Are
But
the
I also
Royals
don't know
doing
why a guy that
worse?
didn't play the day before gets put in the number 1 slot in the lineup anyway. But that also doesn't seem to matter to them anyway. I don't know why.
Are the Royals doing worse against lefties or righties? Do you know?
Well, I'm not sure. I haven't really looked at the splits on that. I do know from having read the book about baseball statistics, um, they don't think the righty lefty matchups are meaningful until you have enough at bats to know that there is a split as a hitter against same or opposite sided pitching. So since all these players that the Royals are using on a day-to-day basis are very young, you shouldn't assume that a guy can't hit same-handed pitching because you're biasing him against it for later in his career too. You may actually be ruining their chances of being a more balanced player as they develop by coddling them at this phase of their development. And since this is a very much a learning year, I think they're doing more harm than good by trying to protect players from handedness of pitcher.
Yeah, like you had said, like if they only face right-handed pitchers, of course they're going to be better at right-handed. But if they never actually learn how to face a left-handed pitcher, when they come into that situation later, they're not going to do it. That was maybe one good thing that Ned Yost did, in that he tended to leave the lineups the same and keep it an even play guys against lefties when maybe they shouldn't really play against lefties all the time. Like he was maligned, I
Efficient
think,
driven though, so
for some of that stuff, but I guess it got results. He went to 2 World Series
yeah.
with the Royals and one of them. So, and almost won the second one. So, it's I think maybe a testament to some of the old, idea of let's like you had said, one of the things that you thought the Royals were going to do was play their young guys, and they really didn't because they maybe wanted to get a couple of older players in and maybe flip them for prospects at the deadline, but that seems to
Yeah.
have hampered the development of these younger players.
Well, I think there's a way to do that, and that's kind of like, you still bring those guys in, but you don't necessarily play them on a daily basis. I think you have them on the roster to at least, guide the young players from the background, and then if one of them falters, then you have a veteran to fill in the faltered position, right? So maybe you don't have to try to feature Jackie Bradley Jr. on the second, third, fourth day of the season, but they can be on the roster and helping Nate Eaton and Kyle Isbell become a better center fielder for the first couple of weeks. And if one of them is great or isn't great, then he's right there to take over the spot. And then if he does take over the spot, then that's a trade piece at the deadline. But they tried to feature these guys early, and they none of them worked out, and they've DFA'd a couple of them already, and they're not going to get any value for what they spent on those free agent acquisitions. Not that some of them were very expensive, but it's still a waste of time and a waste of player development time then too. In some cases, they may have actually harmed some of the development by not allowing them playing time at any level because they kept him on the major league roster instead of sending him down AAA to just play on a daily basis. So it's a little maddening to see how they've handled it in such a kind of silly way, but it doesn't make sense like from the numbers side of it either. So I don't think this is the manager's doing. I think this is the franchise
Okay.
philosophy that's harmed the team.
I was just going to ask if you thought that, we thought earlier that Matt Quatrero would have to do really, 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 really badly this first year to lose his job. And right now, the team is doing really, 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 really badly. Is his job in jeopardy, do you think? If,
I think
let's say the Royals
anytime
finish with under 50 wins, is it?
yeah, if you're competing for a major league record for losses in a season, your job has to be on the line, no matter who you are. First year, second year, 10th year coach, they're all going to be, having to justify their position, at least anyway. I don't think he's likely to be fired. I don't see how they can finish with, this badly, but I mean, some of the things that they do are just seems like they're trying to lose in some way rather than that. It's like, you win a game and then you change your lineup dramatically the next day. It looks like you're punishing players for winning is what it looks like.
Yeah, we saw Mike Myers isn't on the team anymore. He was instrumental in that big win. I just going back to the manager being fired. I was curious just now. I looked it up. The worst team of the 21st century so far has been the 2003 Detroit Tigers. They went 43 and 119. That was Alan Trammell's first year as manager. He was given 2 more years. The team in 2004 finished 72 and 90. In 2005, 71 and 91. Managed 3 seasons, but not.
Was that Verlander's first year too? That 2003 team.
I'm sorry. What
Was that Verlander's first year?
it was?
Was
I
that in
think Verlander
2000?
started the year after.
Was it
I'm not sure. It could
2004?
have been. That was the year they had a lot of young pitchers. That was like the Mike Maroth. So Justin Verlander started in 2005.
Okay.
So 2003 Tigers lineup, starting lineup. Let's just look it up. Their pitching staff was it was they had a young pitching staff. It was Nate Cornejo, Mike Maroth, were
21
number
losses.
one, number two stars. Mike Maroth had 21 losses that year.
Yeah.
Nick Cornejo had 17. He was 6-17. Maroth was 9-21. Jeremy Bonderman, young pitcher at that point, 6 and
He's only
19.
20.
Yeah, so three of their top three pitchers averaged 19 losses.
Yeah.
And in modern baseball, it's tough to win or lose that many games. It's tough to win 20 games. It's also tough to lose 20 games. And it was they each only had they didn't have the full complement of starts even. Jerry Bonnerman went 6-19 and 28 games started. So I
Yeah.
don't know how that quite works, but
Maybe he piled up some losses and in relief appearances though, just
that's possible too.
by chance.
33 total games, so maybe he had a few relief losses. I don't know.
And
He only had five
that was
other
his first
games.
year in the league too. That's what's really tough about that.
Yeah, so like Maroth was supposed to be an up and coming pitcher. He never really amounted to a whole lot. He was terrible that first year, but he wasn't. Nate Cornejo,
He made his first Bonderman made his first 27 starts, and then they made him into a reliever. They switched him to relief for the last couple weeks of the season, but he did not take any losses as a reliever. All the losses were as a starter.
okay. So the Tigers, by the end of the decade, the Tigers were a solid team. Even by 2006, they got rid of Tram after 3 years. Then they got Jim Leland in, and they finished 95-67 and lost the World Series in 2006 to the Cardinals. I remember. And then they finished 88-74, just out of the wild card, I guess, at that point. 74-88 in 2008. 86-77 the next year under Leland. 81-81. And then they won the World Series again, or in the ALCS again in 2011. So that was, I guess, when Miguel Cabrera was really starting to play
Yeah,
a lot for the team. So his first year with Detroit was 2008. He began his career with the Marlins, but
right.
I think he was really good with the Marlins. But I think most of us remember his years with the Tigers. I guess he's still technically with the Tigers. He hasn't
It
been so
is.
good this year, but
They played
definite.
yesterday. I remember seeing him in the game yesterday.
Yeah, I don't know if he played. Well, he didn't. Because if he played today, he didn't score. Again, nobody got hits. It was only one hit, I think, at least through.
I think two total. Yeah, there was one hit in the
Yeah,
ninth also off of Scott Barlow.
yeah. Okay.
But yeah, still.
Yeah,
So yeah, they're not looking so good. There are plenty of ways to figure out what is going wrong, because there's a lot of things to point at as to what's faltering this season and causing all of these losses. But the management is not helping, I don't think, much. And you can tell that just with the difference between the actual win-loss record and the expected win-loss record from the run differential.
does it have anything to do with, do you think, the new stadium being moved? I think that's somewhat news we haven't talked about, was that we're down to two potential stadium sites for the Royals. It's what they call the East Village East lot, which is the eastern part of the downtown loop where the old like MC Sports Castle was, right, and near the City Hall,
Yes.
federal courthouse stuff. And then also the former NKC Pro Bowl facility in North Kansas City, uh, across the river from downtown, which I guess in some ways would, make some sense, but like it seems odd that they would move there since they wanted a downtown stadium. They didn't want a downtown
Right.
Northtown
Adjacent.
stadium.
Right. I
You
think
know,
maybe the advantage for having North Kansas City would be the skyline of Kansas City would be right behind the stadium in the TV shots, at least anyway.
yeah.
So that may be something they're considering, at least. I don't know. But it
Yeah.
is a weird, it is very strange that it's that the North Kansas City site's still on the list, and it's, down to just
Yeah, I guess so. It seems like they're destined not to win, but I guess if something happens with the Village East, I don't know. But like, yeah, it's strange to me, but I don't know if they're like, if is this the new ownership? Like, we don't really care what's going on in the last few years at Kaufman.
yeah.
We just want a good team to be ready for the new stadium. We're just gonna
But
play
I
these
don't see what the team's record has to do with moving the team. All I know is it makes people complain about, like, well, if you want a new stadium, then you have to like win games. That's the argument I hear a lot. I think that argument is asinine. It's like people
games.
will go to the games wherever it is as long as it's in town and they can get to it.
Mhm.
I think more people will go to more games if they can get to the stadium more easily, and a more centrally located stadium seems like you will have a higher base attendance no matter what your team's record is.
Yeah, especially if you have like a stadium that is walkable from some people's residences.
Yeah.
Not that many people live downtown, but more people live downtown than right by the Truman Sports Complex, which is
No one
it's like
lives there.
between Kansas City and Independence, kind of, but Raytown. But it's like nobody lives right there. You can walk from
And I don't know that anybody would want to walk from the nearby areas to the stadium though either,
yeah.
because
I used to walk sometimes, park by the Dixon's Chili Parlor, or in one of the hotel
yeah.
Denny's lots or something, but they kind of cracked down on that.
But that would be like on a game day where you'd be okay walk because there's lots of people around. But
Yeah, yeah.
in any other day, it's probably not the greatest place to go walk anyway. There's a highway right there anyway. So
Yeah, it's true. Yeah. Did you ever eat at Dixon's Chili? Have you eaten there?
no, never did.
It's interesting. It's an interesting place. They have, at least they did before COVID. I don't know if they still do now. They had all you could eat tacos at Dixon's Chili. That was pretty good. So like they would use the chili meat.
Oh,
Dixon's does it differently because like you like assemble the chili. It's dry and it's like meat, and then you add beans and you can pour like juice and stuff on it, but it's like a drier chili.
huh.
So it works really well for tacos. So you can like use the chili meat in the taco shell, and then you get like cheese and lettuce and stuff. But it's yeah, it was pretty good when I had the all you could eat tacos at Dixon's Chili. But that was probably 10 years ago. I don't know if they do that anymore. But
I don't even know if it's still there. I don't know. I assume it is. But
there
this
used to be several Dixon's parlors around. That was one of Harry Truman's favorite restaurants,
yes.
and apparently Dixon's Chili. There's still one on East Highway 40 or 40 Highway. If we're from Kansas City, we say 40 Highway. Do you,
Yes.
do you say 40 Highway? Or do you say Highway 40 like a
I
normal
think
person?
that one's 40 highway. That's just what
40
it's
Highway.
called.
69. It's 69 Highway, 40 Highway.
Right.
Um, I don't think most people say 210 Highway. We say Highway 210.
I think so.
I
Yeah.
don't 169 Highway. It's 169 Highway.
Yeah.
Um, Sometimes Highway 169 maybe, but 71 is it 71 Highway?
They can just call it 71 now, I think, anyway.
Yeah,
I
it
think they just
became
call
you.
it
I
by now. They say the
guess it
highway.
became I-49 farther south.
Right.
So, um,
Yeah, I just call them by the highway numbers, except for 40, which we still call 40
40
highway. Yeah.
24 Highway, 24.
Yeah. That's another one, yeah, I think that gets that name too.
Yeah, it's funny. It's one of those quirky kind of Kansas City area things that.
I guess so. But that's just the name of like the street though. It's actually called 40 Highway, right? It's not just Highway 40.
It says it on the street signs 40
Yeah,
Highway. I'm sure that comes from the weird parlance of
probably.
Kansas City, where they say it. It's one of yeah. You think of Kansas City as being somewhat um like it would have it's middle America, so you think it has like the kind of average speech of everybody, but there are little quirks like that. But
Yeah.
I like the 40 Highway. Yeah.
No.
Uh, the 69 Highway, 40 Highway. 20, yeah, there's anyone that ends. Yeah, they don't say you never say they never say like 70 interstate though, or
Right.
um
Maybe you should start saying it that way and see if it catches on.
or 435I rather than I 435 or something,
Right.
which would be funny, I think. and yeah, I'm sure there's other ones that like I can't think of right now, but
Hmm.
so the right now, yeah, the stadium is where it is, and it's right next to Arrowhead, I
For
guess.
another 7 years. I mean, this isn't a
Yeah,
new thing that's going to happen like overnight. This is
EHA Field at Arrowhead.
a
Yeah,
long-term plan to get the stadium moved. Yeah. Anyway,
it seems like it is a done deal, basically. Is the kind of
the,
assessment?
I think the main thing is that the owner has indicated that his intention is to move the stadium. But I think I mean, a part of it is that the Chiefs are going to want a new stadium too, and if the Royals move, then the Chiefs can use the old Royals stadium. If they knock it down, then they've got a place to build new Arrowhead
Hmm.
without having to find another site to relocate.
Yeah,
Also, because there's been talk of them, KCK trying to steal the Chiefs, which I think it will be a cold day in hell if that cesspool ends up with the
yeah.
Chiefs.
Well, they have the Sporting KC. They have the, I guess, is the NASCAR track, is that as big as it was? Is it like are the races still big?
They have like 2 races a year, I think, there, but it's largely unused most of the time. But I mean, there is a big complex of restaurants and shopping areas that
Village
developed
West.
around that.
Yeah.
The big thing that moved over that way was the Sterner headquarters, though, where the state of Kansas ponied up $200 million in start funds to construct a campus for Cerner before the pandemic, and Cerner has not only not occupied it, they have now sold the company to Oracle and are more or
Hmm.
less leaving most of their buildings and going to a more work from home or transitioning to a work for Oracle from Oracle, I think is what's going to happen. So because North Kansas City is losing the actual Cerner headquarters uh
Hmm.
officially. I think
Are they?
they're like consolidating all of their workforce to the Grandview Triangle.
Okay. So where the old Marion Labs,
Yeah,
Marion Merrill Dow, um, Quintiles was, or
right.
my dad used to work there for, some down at Three Trails Crossing, right? Isn't that what it's called now instead of the Grandview Triangle?
Is it? I don't know.
I think it was three. I think they tried to call it Three Trails Crossing, and like I don't know if you listen to traffic reports anymore, because I lived there for a while, but I think um,
Yeah.
it didn't quite take off. But
Yeah. I try not to go down that way because it's a
yeah,
mess.
yeah, on Wikipedia, I'm looking it up. So the Wikipedia article is called Grandview Triangle, but it
Yeah.
says the Three Trails Crossing Memorial Highway is the official name for an
Oh.
interchange in South Kansas City, Missouri, that was once considered one of Missouri's most congested locations. Although it is known as Grandview Triangle, it says it is known as Grandview Triangle. Isn't it the Grandview
I
Triangle?
think
I
so.
always hear it with the article. I've never heard it without the article.
Yeah, I
Wikipedia
think
is
it's
usually
always
good at
that.
that sort of thing, but it's
They can call it whatever they want. People are still going to call it the Great Triangle. They're always going to call it Sandstone, even though it's the Azura Amphitheater. They're going to call it Sandstone forever, right? Kansas Cityans will always know and
I'm gonna
refer to it as Sandstone, right?
I'm gonna edit this and put the in front of Grandview Triangle.
Are you live editing Wikipedia
I'm live editing Wikipedia.
during the warning track power hour?
Yeah,
Is that a
because
first
well, I think it is. Yeah, because
for us
with
anyway?
it is a slow news week here at the Winter Power Hour. Yes, the Grandview Triangle. Yes, just to make it sound like it's normal. All right, it's on there. So if you go to Grandview Triangle Wikipedia page slash Three Trails Crossing Wikipedia page, it should be. I want to see if it stays that way or if there's some like weirdo that insists.
We'll uncorrect your
Well,
correction.
yeah, it's just Grandview Triangle. Like it's I don't know. I don't. Yeah, it is. We're not just like I'm not just like crazy. It's the
Yeah, it's
by
the
the
Great
Grandview Triangle.
Triangle. Yes, for sure, definitely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, okay, yeah.
Yes.
But
So
speaking,
maybe we talk about the draft just a little bit,
Okay,
just a little bit before we move on to football news?
sure.
Is that I think we're still going through some of this draft analysis from the past Royals drafts. I know that you and I talked a little bit about um, the concept of tanking and how it doesn't always seem like a good idea. At least I don't think it seems like a good idea, for the fact that the first draft pick does not always tend to yield the best player in the draft,
No.
and not just doesn't always, but it I think rarely does. uh but I wanted to point out specifically to take a look at the 2014 draft, where the top two players, one didn't even sign. The number one player ended up being not signed at all because of uh, a disagreement, I guess, after physical showed maybe a smaller than normal UCL tendon
Yeah, that was the Brady Aiken who was not
ligament.
signed by Houston, even though he was picked by Houston. Aiken, I think he did make the majors just in maybe the last couple of years he played for the Phillies, and now I think he's out of baseball. But yeah, he would
No,
have been one of
Aiken
four.
never made it to the majors. It was Appel that made it.
Oh, next year,
That was
Mike
the
Appel.
20.
Yeah, we were. I was confused. Yeah, Mike
That was the
Appel.
2013 draft. Was Mark Appel.
Yes,
But the
Mark Appel.
2014 draft, yeah, the number one pick ended up not signing with Houston.
Mark Appel was Houston too, wasn't he?
Yes, that is correct.
And then,
So they got
so
number
Houston
one
had the
pick two
number.
years in a row. Neither of them worked out at all for them. And then in 2014, actually, the Marlins selected Tyler Kolek with their first pick, which was number two overall. He also did not make the major leagues at all. Was out of baseball within 4 or 5 seasons, I think. So and then actually, the best player in that draft, at least in the first round, didn't come until the seventh pick. No,
Hmm.
sorry. The 13th pick was Trey Turner. Been worth about 30 WAR in his career. Aaron Nola was the seventh pick, 30.4. Matt Chapman was the next best, I guess, in that first round at 25. And there's a handful of players that never made the majors at all, and another handful of players that have very low major league totals. I don't think teams should try to tank to get a better draft position. But
The,
now
the
it's even
Astros.
worse because there actually is a lottery set up now for
Yeah,
the
the lottery.
team.
Yeah.
And so the first three teams, so the teams with the three worst records, 28th, 29th, and 30th in Major League Baseball, have the same odds at getting the number one overall pick. So really, being dead last doesn't help you any more than being third to last when it comes to drafting. So if the Royals are trying to tank for a position, they're doing it for no reason at all.
Well, it's not impossible. The Royals don't know the new rules, but and it's also like unlikely that we'll ever see. I think Houston had the 2012, 2013, and 2014 number one overall picks. They only hit on one of those three. That was Carlos Correa in 2012, and then they whiffed completely on the other two. And
Yeah.
then they because they didn't even sign Aiken, they got Lance Bregman at number two the next year. But Bregman has been just kind of an adequate player. So like it's unusual. We think of because they think, well, tanking is what made the Astros good. Because they've been really good the last several years, but a lot of it's been maybe cheating and high price free agent signings and
Right.
general skullduggery.
Oh,
And
I didn't even notice that 2015 draft had there was something I always said I don't like. It happened three times at the beginning. The first three players drafted were all shortstops.
you tend to think that the first best like if it's a shortstop, you don't want to pick the second best shortstop. You want to pick the
That high anyway. That's what I would
best left fielder or the best pitcher.
picture.
What about like in football? They do this a lot. They will say, well, the number one pick is going to be a quarterback, and the number two pick is going to be a quarterback, and maybe
Yeah,
the number three pick might even be a quarterback. Like this
yeah.
year in the end, like it wasn't didn't quite work out that way this year for the NFL, but like many of the I think Richardson was the fourth pick as the third quarterback because Houston traded back and into number three. But that'll be common. You'll pick one, like, especially if there's no, like quarterback. I guess maybe in baseball you don't have a position that's as important as quarterback. Although I guess you could say pitcher. Would you say like if you pick the number one pitcher at number one, you would not want the number one pitcher at number two, or is this just position players that you would?
Well, so then you've also got the righty lefty, so you might even split pitchers into two categories, maybe.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think you mentioned this last week too that frequently the best athlete's going to play either shortstop or center field.
Yeah,
And so it may be that a lot of players are listed at center field or shortstop, but they may not end up being a center fielder or shortstop in their career as they
like
age out.
Moustakas was a shortstop when he was picked up,
And
drafted, and he, of course, looking at him now, you would say that guy would never be a shortstop, but maybe at
yeah,
Chatsworth High School, uh, he's also in high school, so he probably didn't, he was not as stocky then as he would become. But I guess some of the players like Hosmer was a first baseman from the beginning, but maybe your big power guys at first, and then your like athlete guys at short or um,
center maybe.
center. Sometimes you have it seems like maybe catchers are more. I don't know. Do you put a good player catcher more than in high school than you do in?
You think they certainly could. But yeah, the catcher position doesn't, in at least in this draft that I have up right now, 2015 draft, weren't there guys weren't drafted super high at the catcher position. There were only two catchers in the top in the first round, and that includes the 12 supplemental picks too. There were only two catchers selected, and neither of them have done a whole lot in the major leagues, but they both made it
Yeah,
to the majors.
yeah.
So
And I'm looking at the drafts here in
maybe that's a
20
more sure thing though to pick a catcher. It seems like you'd say that from that.
in 2012, the number three overall pick, Mike Zunino, was a catcher, but then there was no catcher taken until 26. In 2013, um, Reese McGuire, number 14, was the highest pick catcher. Nick Chufo,
2016, there were three
14.
catchers taken. They all made the
Kyle
majors.
Schwarber was taken as a catcher at number four.
Yeah,
Schwarber, I don't think he never played catcher for
I think
the
he may
Tap
have been
State.
listed as like the emergency catcher if the scenario came up. But I think that's about it, right?
Yeah, I don't. He played outfield mostly. But it's like maybe a little bit or DH. Maybe it's a little bit like Mike Sweeney came up as a catcher
Yeah,
as well, and he hit too well to be a catcher basically, and we want him to, or he didn't field well enough and hit well. Like usually you want to be
right.
a really good fielder for I guess they want catchers to be really good fielders, and sometimes they can hit really well, like if you're Salvi or somebody like that. But
Schwarber did he caught 21 games in 2015.
oh, he did.
He caught 4 games in 2017, 1 game in 19. Yeah, so I think maybe he caught a little bit this first season, and then
Okay.
only in emergency scenarios must be later.
Yeah, I was wrong though. I didn't remember him as a catcher at all.
I think he did. I
Ty-
don't think he played there a lot, but yeah, his first year it looks like he played mostly in the outfield. Although if he was in the American League, he probably would have been a DH probably more often than than not anyway, right?
yeah.
So
Do
so yeah,
you know? I have a draft question.
sure.
Um, in the 2016 draft, there were only 23 first round picks. Do you have any idea why that was the case?
2016.
Yeah.
There's
Was
30 on my
there
list.
there were more? I see that there were compensatory picks
I've got
from
30
24 to
plus the 11 compensatory picks is what
I
was
have
on
24 I have 24 to 34.
in
So I have
2016.
I have 1 through 23 as teams, then 24 to 34 is compensatory, and then competitive balance 35 through.
Oh, this just shows 1 through 30. Who does it
Hmm.
have as 24?
Okay, so it's 24. This is a Wikipedia, so
Oh,
I'm just
it is the Padres again, though. Padres had 2 picks, 24, 25. It must be, yeah. Oh, well, so I bet that's what they're it's for losing qualified free agents, I think was the compensatory picks. They must actually count as full first round picks, though.
the competitive balance. So like it says, yeah, I see compensatory round and then competitive balance. And but like yeah, it was so I only have 1 through 23 as different teams. So like the Yankees,
No,
for
it
example,
if it's
they're
baseball reference doesn't
18.
show them as a different portion of the round, but
Hmm.
it does have the Padres picking 24, 25, and they'd already picked 8, so they
Okay.
this is a different type of round though, but it doesn't show that as any difference in the
Yeah.
baseball reference.
In 2017, it looks like there are 27 first round picks. In 2018, there's 30. So I'm not sure what happened
Well, so
in
the teams that
2016
were
and
in the
17.
24 and 25 positions must have selected a free agent from the Padres, so they ceded their pick to the Padres. So they like signed a free agent away
Ah,
from them. So they were like the picks are ceded back to the team that lost the player.
that makes sense.
So I think that
I don't
you can't
follow the
trade
Major League
because
Baseball draft
you
as
can't
much
trade
as
picks in baseball. You have to
mhm.
you can't they're not part of the an asset that can be swapped with another team. The draft picks are yours and yours alone, unless you forfeit them or seed them away in a free agent signing for a protected player. So yeah, that's one of the few differences I think between the drafts and the different leagues, right?
uh, but for the Royals, they did when they got Drew Waters, they did sort of trade a draft pick to get him last year. Apparently, they sent prospects from Atlanta, KC in exchange for a competitive balance round pick, which I guess maybe you can
That's
trade.
the supplement picks you can trade. Yes.
They can't be
But
traded straight up for cash. They have to have players heading back. It
yeah.
says.
Yeah, so I think the official Drew Waters trade, I think just shows it as cash, but then it's the competitive balance pick as part of that cash swap, I think.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
it's a strange. It seems strange that you can't trade the draft picks, but I think that comes from just older fashioned because the draft has been well, they don't even have as many rounds as they used to because they don't have as many minor league teams as they used to because major league teams wanted to get the minor leagues just because they were losing a little bit of money on some of them, I
They
guess.
say it's expensive to run, but they all sell tickets too, so it's hard to say.
Yeah, they don't play and they don't pay any money to those players that play. Basically,
They're
they're on
it's I don't
it's
know that most of them can
minimum wage kind
live
of
and yeah.
scale, but no, whatever. My local minor league team that I go to see play sometimes the Altoona Curve is still in admission, so I'm happy about.
Do they have more
I
attendance than the Royals have?
no,
No.
but um, no, but kids do like to come out and see Altoona uh,
Yes.
mascot around. But I don't know. Should we remove? Are we have we talked enough baseball? Or do we want to move on
Yes.
to?
Let's move on.
We don't have much to talk about for the Chiefs. The Chiefs did, I guess, receive their Super Bowl 57 championship rings. They were 600 plus diamonds in each
Right.
one, right? has 3 Lombardi trophies represented for the 3 Chiefs Super Bowl trophies. I think it's always interesting that they want that one Super Bowl 4 they attach to the I guess it's the franchise, but you know
Yeah.
you can't keep adding all the Lombardis after if Mahomes wins a couple of them, you aren't gonna be able to fit those on one ring. But um, anything notable about the rings to you? They were manufactured by Jostens, the same company that manufactures many of the high school graduation rings worn in this country. You think it's
Our
funny?
class rings, I believe, were Justin. So we basically have Super Bowl rings, right? Is that?
I didn't get a class ring, so I didn't.
Oh,
I don't. Do you have a class ring?
I think so. Somewhere maybe.
Yeah, you've done many more things besides graduate from high school, and so you don't wear. Yeah, I didn't.
I don't know that I ever wore it ever. Maybe even at all. I don't know.
Justin's had a is the major as we learned today 2 major rivals in the class ring slash graduation regalia paraphernalia um, business, and one of those is Herf Jones, which I had known about, but there's apparently a third company that Jostens competes against, along with Herf Jones, who they actually sued at one point, the LG Balfour company. Do you know any of these companies besides Jostens? You don't
No,
have any Herf?
yeah, I didn't know anything about most
Yeah,
really any of them. I mean, I knew of Jostens because they make class rings, and that's probably about it.
no,
But
yeah.
yes,
So
who
they're
owns Herf Jones though, Mike?
well, we it was once Herf and Jones, 2 men came together with a vision to construct high quality class rings for high school graduates around the country. But eventually, I believe Herf Jones was purchased by different conglomerates, but most recently purchased by Mitt Romney's old company, Bain Capital. It must be a good investment if it's Bain Capital that owns it, right?
It has to be. It's a many billion dollar company, right?
Do you think Romney has do you think Mitt Romney wears a Herf Jones ring?
Probably has to, doesn't he? It's
Yeah, I don't.
probably.
Does he still work for Bain Capital? I don't know if he's still. I guess he's a senator now, so he probably can't work for Bain.
I think he's
But
contractually obligated to from his time there to continue to wear Herf Jones.
yes, so
Probably,
the,
right?
so it's in the halls of power, Herf Jones. You think maybe does Jostens have a similar um, connection to our country's elite?
Ooh, I don't know. Do
Herf
they?
Jones was this close to the presidency.
Yeah.
Is that what we're saying?
That's I think so. I think that is what we're saying.
So I guess but the Chiefs still didn't go with Herf Jones. They went with Jostens uh, to design their rings, and I just find it funny that Jostens does Super Bowl championship rings and 1997 NKC high school graduation rings.
Jostens is only owned by a slightly smaller conglomerate than Bain, or is it larger? Do we know?
Um,
Platinum Equity.
Platinum Equity. Well, I haven't heard of Platinum Equity, so uh,
They
let's
paid
see.
over $1 billion for Jostens.
Yeah, Platinum Equity was founded by a guy named Tom Gores, born Tufik Georgius. He's
Oh,
Arabic. He's born in the city of Nazareth, now in Israel. Uh, so he was Tufik Georgius was born in a practicing Catholic family with a father of Greek descent and a mother of, get this, Andrew Scaff, Lebanese descent. So he might be one of your countrymen, maybe one of your family members. So maybe
yeah.
that's why you have Jostens uh, kind of uh, brand loyalty, because
Maybe
a
I'm genetically
Lebanese
tied to Jostens in some way.
man. Um, yeah. So yeah, and so Tom Gores, as he became known, he moved left Nazareth, also of course where Jesus, his hometown, even though he was born in Bethlehem, he was raised in Nazareth according to the New Testament. Tom Gores left Nazareth and moved to Genesee, Michigan. I had to look up where Genesee, Michigan is. I assumed it was close to Detroit. It is not.
Hmm.
But as well, Genesee is a biblical name, an old timey form of Genesis. So
Yes, I was
it's all
assuming.
coming together here. And of
Yeah.
course, Mitt Romney has his interesting sort of Mormon heritage as part of Bain Capital, and also from Michigan. So
So
it's
Bain Capital is about 5 times the size of Platinum Equity.
uh,
Bain, $165 billion fund.
but the platinum equity also has the metal platinum in its name. So do they
Yeah,
think that
but it's only worth about 36 billion though. To Bain's 165.
ooh, yeah, Bain is
So
bigger.
we've got an edge.
Yeah, Genesee, Michigan. It is.
Jeez.
Yeah. There's a Genesee beer in this part of the country, but that's from Rochester, New York,
Ah,
because the Genesee, I believe the Genesee River flows through. I always like to hear the name Genesee when it seems kind of not with Tennessee, but it's also sort of old timey, like in Oh Brother Where Art Thou? They mention when you've seen Oh
oh
Brother,
yeah,
Brother when John Goodman is the Bible salesman, and
yeah.
he sells the good book from Genesee to Revelations, as he says, and he beats up Everett and Delmer and smashes the toad that they think is actually uh, they think is John Turturro. But
Yeah, it's great. It's a great movie.
anyway, so but we're really stretching here to go for
Yeah.
uh, content.
Did you
Speaking
like
of,
the rings then? Were
I,
was
I think they're fine. I don't know. They're too
did
gaudy
you
for
like the
anything I'd wear.
detachable portion that can become a pendant?
Oh yeah, it can become a miniature pendant. I guess. Is that better? I guess it's does it come with a chain though? Does that part of it, or do you have to supply your own
You might have had to supply your own chain.
chain?
But the ring, what was left after you detached, though, had like the arrowhead, stadium grounds on it with another trophy. So it was still
Ooh,
like, even if you took the, gaudy diamond part off the top, there was still like something there that was like, you know, to look at. Although it was
ooh. So
interesting.
it's a little bit like the detachable face of a car stereo that you would take off so a thief would not steal it, but
Yeah.
you still had the stereo. You wouldn't have to carry on the whole stereo
Yeah.
with you. Here, you can take
Sure.
the blingiest part off and still have a ring, but maybe one that would be not as attractive
Two
to
thieves.
criminal elements. But also, it's something you're going to lose. There's a little piece that breaks. Probably you can't quite put it on again.
Right.
The more moving pieces there are, I think, to things, usually the more things that can go wrong. But
No.
I, you know, um,
But no microchips or anything. So
no microchips. But one person who did not receive a Super Bowl ring because he left the Chiefs right before this past season was Tyreek Hill, who's in perhaps another kind of legal sort of involved in maybe some more legal trouble. He apparently, I looked up this a little bit more closely. He slapped a worker at some marina in
hmm.
Miami in the back of the head, like and
A
now
stevedore? What is a stevedore? No, it's a marina, you said,
it was not a stevedore.
not a
Yeah, it wasn't
dock.
a longshore. It was not a dock. It was a charter boat operator or person, and I don't know why
Hmm.
he hit this person, and law enforcement is investigating. This happened on Sunday, apparently.
Hmm.
But according to the things I've read, the guy is not pressing charges, although I don't know what happened. Did anything happen? Remember when Devontae Adams ran into the guy when he was leaving the field this past season?
Oh yeah,
Did anything happen with that?
it sounded like there was a potential suit, but I don't know if they actually brought it or if they just let it go or what. I don't know. No, I don't know.
It says the court date has been rescheduled for June 26th in an older article. So
No, that's
maybe
like
there's
coming
still
up in a week.
something going on with that. So that will be updated by the time we are
Yeah, that'd be next Monday. So
our these sort of run-ins that with lower level workers and high-priced wide receivers in the National Football League. They don't seem to treat the help very well, or at least working man. Maybe we would call them rather than the help. I think gives a bit more dignity. Working class Americans, and yeah. So I don't know what will happen with Tyreek. It was it's another incident, but maybe this is gonna be nothing. Who knows? But it's I don't. We're really grasping at straws. I think
yeah.
for content. I don't really have any other
Hmm.
NFL information, or we've already uh, talked about the Royals a little bit too much for either of our likings. Especially, we love to talk about the Royals when they are at least doing something right, and it seems like they're doing just about nothing right now, and even not even just kind of uh, passively doing nothing right. They're actively making things worse, especially given your analysis with the way the pitching staff has been handled, and also the way the lineups have been handled. And so, if you can't get the pitching down, you can't get the lineups down. Well, there's not much left, uh, is there?
Yeah. Those
It's
are the basics. I guess there's
yeah,
fielding too, so maybe that's it.
fielding, but the people who are fielding are in the lineup, I guess. So
But they're
it's
also being shuffled around too. Like they're not playing the same positions every day. So that's another thing that drives me crazy, at least anyway. But
those hapless Royals. We're getting back into like the early aughts kind of, or late '90s sort of Royals. It seems like, but maybe things will turn around. Who
yeah,
knows? Maybe this season they will, rally and get red hot and win 60 games or 63 games and prevent a 100 loss season. Uh, Doing so, they still, like you had mentioned, they still could get that number one draft pick next year based on percentages. It would behoove them not to just try to lose for losing's sake
but
because
they can still get the number one draft pick if they finish 13th. You can still have a percentage chance. It's very small, 0.2% chance to get the number one pick if you're 13th best record in the league, just outside the playoffs.
Mhm.
Because it's every team that does not make the playoffs is in the lottery for the number one pick.
It's technically like the NBA,
Yeah.
but
But your percentages are much higher as you go. But the best percentage is still only 16.5%. I don't know why you'd risk, being forcibly bad for a 16% chance.
yeah,
The
that's
guy that
interesting.
might or might not be successful in
Yeah,
5 to 6 years.
it's more likely than not. Technically, it's 50.5% to 49.5% that a non bottom three team will win the number one draft pick in this system, which I guess is designed to prevent things like the Astros from happening, but I don't know if it's necessarily any.
Well, and just from even from this season, the Royals were, I believe, the fifth worst team. So they were, if it was a traditional draft, they would have picked fifth. But because this is the first year of the lottery rules, they actually slid to eighth. So, they should already know that the odds of getting the one overall,
Yeah,
it's not like a guarantee by any means. And even like, picking higher than your perceived slot based on your finished record, it's no guarantee that you'll even, get to pick better or worse or your own slot. I mean, there's no
yeah.
it's leaving it up to chance, and I don't think there's anything that says you should bet on that being your future.
It'll be interesting to see as well, like in maybe 5 or 6 years when the players have reached the majors, like if the Royals could have picked fifth this year, like a normal year, did they miss out on a good player that was fifth and they picked somebody
Yeah.
that was eight, or did they somehow get a better player that at eight than maybe they would have at five, or would they have drafted the same player anyway? We don't really know.
Yeah, what I'm going to assume is they're probably going to they're going to stretch somebody that's grew up in Kansas City that nobody saw as a top 30 pick, and they'll take him in the 8th spot, and they would have taken him in 5 also, right? So even or
Yeah.
1, it didn't matter where they were, they would take the guy they wanted, regardless of what anyone else thought of him. That's been their kind of history, at least anyway, and
Yeah.
I don't think that works.
It's a little like the Warning Track Power Hour. Regardless of what anyone thinks of us, we are still doing it every single week. And we will be back again next week with another Warning Track Power Hour. And so I think we'll probably sign off for this week's episode. We ended up filling a little bit of time. We're about an hour, I think. So we did make our Power Hour, even if we had to talk about Bain Capital and things like that for uh, many minutes that none of you will ever get back if you listened all the way through, which I'm sure you did because you're a dedicated listener to our high quality program here. So from all of us here, I am Dr. Michael Werman. He is Dr. Andrew Scaff. We are the Warning Track Power Hour. Please like and subscribe to our podcast/YouTube channel. And we will be back again next week with many, many more exciting stories and analysis from the world of sports. And until we see you next time, we will bid you good day.